What's happening, everybody? Who are some of the more impactful transfers coming to the SEC this football season? And we'll recap a very eventful baseball weekend in the regionals. Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. On today's show, we'll run through some of the highest rated transfers coming into this college football season. Also look back on some of the top ranked ones throughout the years. We'll get you caught up on the latest news going around the conference as Ole Miss continues to add to their transfer portal group. And we'll recap all that action in the regional rounds. Who's heading to the super regionals in baseball? We'll discuss that. But I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to our everydayers. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOnCollege to get started. All right, let's dive into it because I came across this piece over the weekend, 24/7 Sports. They asked, who are the highest rated transfers coming into this season? And there are some SEC guys making the list and some former SEC guys making the list as well. So as we dive into it, we start at wide receiver as they have got the Izaiah Bond, the Texas wide receiver, making this list. Of course, he was the first Alabama player to hit the transfer portal when Nick Saban announced his retirement, and he settles into a Texas offense that could be among the leaders in the nation in scoring if they reach their potential. With Quinn Ewers back, Steve Sarkisian calling the plays, and they are now an SEC team. So Izaiah Bond stays in the SEC, going from Alabama to Texas. But obviously, they lose, a couple pieces to the NFL draft, and so they bring in a lot of wide receivers through the portal, and Izaiah Bond is expected to be a guy who plays a big part for the Longhorns this year. The other guy they have on this list, Evan Stewart, the former Texas A&M Aggie, who is heading to Oregon, and they think that he could, be a big-time impact player up there for the Oregon Ducks. Sticking with Texas, best tight end, they've got Amari Niblack, another guy coming from Alabama over to Texas. So Izaiah Bond and Amari Niblack both rated at the top of this list. And as 24/7 Sports writes, it is a plug-and-play option to replace JT Sanders, the former tight end who went to the pros. So Quinn Ewers got some big-time weapons. It's ironic. Quinn Ewers goes into Tuscaloosa last year, beats Alabama with all those weapons. You got to wonder, was Amari Niblack and Izaiah Bond watching what Quinn Ewers was doing that night going, hey, I'd like to play for that guy or play with that guy. And they are now playing for Sark in Texas, who come over to the SEC. All right, how about on the offensive line? They list 5 guys here, and 4 of the 5 are in the SEC, and it's headlined by Cayden Green, the tackle, headed to Missouri. But here's what 24/7 Sports writes. They say, had he stuck with his initial decision to transfer to Iowa, Caden Proctor would have been the headliner of this list, but he instead re-enrolled at Alabama after a whirlwind spring. So instead they go with this list. They list Jason Zandamela, who's heading to Florida as the top-ranked transfer at the position, could man a guard spot right out of the gate for the Gators. He was the top-ranked interior offensive lineman in the recruiting class and spent just half an off season at USC as an early enrollee before returning to his home state to play his freshman season with the Gators. But Cayden Green there, heading to Missouri. Jason Zandamela heading to Florida. Parker Brailsford coming over from Washington to Alabama. And Lance Hurd heading from LSU to Tennessee, where a lot of people expect he will lock down one of those tackle spots. So no real surprises there. Quarterback is interesting. They list Julian Sayin as the top-ranked quarterback to hit the transfer portal. Of course, he is at Ohio State. He's a rare example of a college football player who entered the portal before his freshman year even started. 5-star recruit, number 3 quarterback in the 2024 class, enrolled early at Alabama, but elected to leave when Nick Saban announced his retirement, committed to Ohio State. It's weird to even call him an Alabama transfer because he never played at Alabama. He never went through a season with Alabama. So it's a little strange there. But how about the one at running back? It's Quinshon Judkins. who leaves Ole Miss for Ohio State. And here's what they write at 24/7. He could aid Ohio State in thriving more as a power rushing team in 2024 as a transfer portal's top-ranked ball carrier. Already had a track record of dominance as a volume rusher. And the former Ole Miss star is one of 6 cover athletes for the EA Sports College Football 25 video game. Yeah, look, Ole Miss is going to find a way to replace the production. I know a lot of Ole Miss fans are very optimistic about replacing him, and they're adding through the portal and trying to find the pieces to do that. But man, it is going to be weird to watch Quinshawn, who was at SEC Media Days with us just last summer, to watch him go run the ball for Ohio State is just going to be really strange. All right, on the defensive side of the ball, all 3 guys on the defensive line that they list are in the SEC, and it starts with Big Nic Scourton out of Texas A&M coming over from Purdue. And here's what 24/7 writes. They say 2 of the top 3 transfer D linemen are pass rushers by nature. Scourton was the star of spring practices for A&M and is a seamless fit into that Mike Elko defense as the reigning Big Ten sacks leader. Prince Umanmielen also makes this list, heading from A&M to Ole Miss. And they say Umanmielen represents a significant step forward on the D-line of the ball for an Ole Miss team on the verge of college football playoff contention. And they also list Walter Nolen coming over from A&M. Did I say Princely? Princely coming from Florida to Ole Miss. Walter Nolen coming from A&M to Ole Miss. So 2 of these guys are former Florida and A&M stars going to Ole Miss. Another one is a former Purdue star going to A&M. But anyway, they say Nolen is the highest rated of the 3, is more of an interior lineman, and he headlines the Ole Miss Rebels' top-ranked transfer class. Yeah, big expectations for all 3 of those guys this year, and you expect they'll be on all the preseason SEC watch lists and all that kind of stuff. All right, taking a look at the linebacker spot. They've got 2 of the 3 guys on this list are in the SEC, and they have got Jamin Dumas-Johnson at the top here, coming from Georgia, heading to Kentucky. They also list Chris Paul leaving Arkansas for Ole Miss, and then a Wisconsin kid. We won't get into him, but they say, here's the 24/7 Sports Rights. Kentucky benefited greatly from the talent that departed this offseason from Georgia, as it not only secured a veteran presence in the middle of their defense in Dumas-Johnson, but also locked in its starting quarterback and former Bulldogs backup Brock Vandegrift. Meanwhile, Ole Miss landed a tackling machine and former SEC All-Freshman team honoree in Chris Paul, who registered 137 stops across his first 3 seasons. So good picks there. And then at defensive back, they only have 1 current SEC guy listed in here. And that's Jordan Gilbert, leaving Texas A&M for LSU. The big one on here, though, is Caleb Downs, who leaves Alabama for Ohio State. And here's what they say. Downs is the crown jewel of the transfer portal class as a reigning young star and one of the nation's most potent defenses. Became the first Alabama freshman in program history to lead the Tide in tackles with 107. The National Freshman of the Year, has elite upside on an Ohio State defense that perennially churns through top-tier NFL talent. So they didn't even write about they mentioned Jordan Gilbert, but they didn't even write about him. So, but he expects to start in that secondary for LSU, which needs to be much improved from what it was a year ago. And then lastly, special teams, they list new Alabama kicker Graham Nicholson. He was the ultra-reliable special team star at Miami of Ohio, converted 26 of 27 field goal attempts last year, set the FBS record for most field goals without a miss over a 12-game stretch with 23, gives the Tide another elite weapon in the kicking game a year after Will Reichard became the NCAA's all-time scoring leader. Now, what's interesting on this list, 24/7 also did a piece listing the most impactful transfers of the portal era. And here's what they write. They say, while transfers existed long before the portal officially opened in October of 2018, the new system made the process much easier for players who previously had to sit out a year before regaining eligibility at their new school. And so going through their top 10, they list them 10 through 1 as their most impactful. So we'll just touch on the SEC guys. But coming in number 9 on this list, they've got Jamison Williams from Alabama. They say one of only 2 non-quarterbacks on this list. The former Alabama wideout had a breakout campaign in 2021 after transferring from Ohio State, filled the void left by Devontae Smith, who won the Heisman, and Jamison Williams incredible year. Ended up being a first-round pick to the Detroit Lions, and could have repeated. Alabama could have repeated as national champs if Williams did not suffer a torn ACL. They do list Jalen Hurts at number 7 on this list, but that was him leaving Alabama for Oklahoma in 2019. Coming at number 6 on this list, they have Hendon Hooker, Tennessee. They say he was a key factor behind Tennessee climbing all the way to number 1 in the country during the 22 season. The former Virginia Tech quarterback spent 2 years with the Vols, developing to arguably one of the top quarterbacks in the country. For that season-ending injury derailed him, but Hendon was awesome. We had him on the show a handful of times, and really helped get Tennessee back to where they wanted to be these last couple years. There, coming in at number 4 on this list, they've got Jaden Daniels, where they say he came a long way from leaving Arizona State, where his teammates mocked his departure. In just 2 seasons at LSU, he developed into a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, the number 2 overall pick in this year's NFL draft. And he broke numerous NCAA and LSU records, including the highest single season passer rating. He's the only player in FBS history with 12,000 yards passing and 3,000 yards rushing in his career. So really cool stuff there. Number 2 on this list, they list Justin Fields. Again, he was at Georgia, left for Ohio State. We know how that played out. And then number 1 on this list, it's Joe Burrow from LSU. And again, it's hard to even think that Joe Burrow was part of the transfer portal era, but that was kind of when it first got started, really, this transfer portal era, quote unquote. But obviously Burrow, went on to break like every record and had LSU's single greatest season of all time, won the Heisman, number 1 pick in the draft, so on and so forth. And history was written from there. All right, thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Coming up next, we will go around the conference as Ole Miss adds another piece through the transfer portal. We'll tell you who that is coming up in just a sec. But first, I want to remind you, this episode presented to you by our friends at LinkedIn Jobs. When you are hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role you're looking for. And that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. They got all the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. And here's the deal. LinkedIn is not just a job board. They help you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to a perfect role. In any given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours of posting. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. And look, LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier for you. They even have a new feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. And they know you're wearing so many hats these days as a small business owner, you might not have the time or resources to hire. So go to LinkedIn Jobs. They're going to make it easy for you. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Go post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, rolling along here, Locked On SEC. I want to remind you guys, if you haven't checked it out yet, please check out Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you each and every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today. Can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. All right, we got plenty more to discuss, so let's do it this way. Before we get into baseball and softball and all that, let's do this, and we'll go around the conference talking football.
Boots out to the right. Takes the handoff. What a catch!
Around the conference.
And we start over at Ole Miss as the Rebels have added another transfer commitment on Friday, picking up a pledge from former Southern Illinois wide receiver Izaiah Hartrup. 6 foot tall, from Missouri. He comes to Oxford after spending 4 seasons at Southern Illinois. He was the team's leading receiver last season, has 2 years of eligibility remaining. He had previously been committed to Ohio, but backed off that pledge just last week. Played in 10 games as a true freshman in 2020, played 13 games in 2021, was limited to just 1 game in 2022 with an injury. But he's the third receiver to transfer to Ole Miss so far this offseason. Joins Juice Wells coming in from South Carolina, Devin Price coming in from FAU. And look, that group was already loaded with Trey Harris back as the leader in that room, Jordan Watkins, and Jackson Dart. He's got a lot of weapons to choose from. Now, Inside the Rebels reported that Marquise Willis, a JUCO signee from Coahoma Community College, is in a situation to monitor going forward, calling his status blurry. So we'll see what happens with him. But look, Rebels are going to be just fine at that wide receiver spot. It's just crazy that they're still adding. Like, Lane Kiffin, as of last 2 weeks, was still adding to the running back room. And, he's got, Rashad Amos and Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, Henry Parrish with Ulysses Bentley in the backfield. And now, Juice Wells with Jordan Watkins, Trey Harris, of course, Deion Smith, who came in through the portal. We mentioned Devin Price. I mean, they're just loaded. They're loaded with tons of talent. They got to go put it all together, but Ole Miss looking pretty good. And on the recruiting front, they added another piece to their 2024 recruiting class on Sunday, picking up a commitment from four-star safety Keon Young, choosing the Rebels over the likes of Kentucky, Florida, Tennessee. He's the number 350 overall player, the number 30 safety in the country, according to 24/7 Sports. He's 6 foot tall, 171 pounds. And that puts Ole Miss now up to 9 commitments for the class of 2025, currently sitting at number 25 nationally in the composite rankings. Over at Mizzou, a name to keep an eye on, former Michigan State defensive lineman Simeon Barrow transferred out of Michigan State and announced a couple weeks ago he's heading to Miami. Well, as Pete Nakos of On3 Sports reports, he says Miami D lineman Simeon Barrow has yet to formally notify the program he's leaving. However, it is trending in that direction. And Matt Zenitz jumped in and said, look, things are currently up in the air with Simeon Barrow in Miami. He has matriculated, meaning he's not actively in the portal anymore, which could complicate a departure. But Zenitz added, if and when Barrow and Miami part ways, Missouri seems to be a team to watch as a possibility for him. Barrow, like we said, committed to Miami earlier last month after 4 seasons at Michigan State, coming off an impressive 3-year run there. At 3.5 sacks, 5.5 tackles for a loss this past season at Michigan State, and would be quite another pickup for Missouri. Missouri's did a nice job adding through the portal here this offseason, and that would be another big get. Now, there is an issue of, did you hit your limit, your roster limit on scholarships? If they are at that scholarship limit, you could add a kid as a walk-on. It's kind of what Florida just did with Carmani McClain. Add him as a walk-on and then get him an NIL deal to cover, tuition and all that kind of stuff. So it's always an option too, but certainly keep an eye on that. That would be a big pickup there for Missouri. An unlikely pickup after it looked like he was heading to Miami. Over at Alabama, 24/7 Sports national analyst Mike Roach and Brett Greenberg. They've joined national analyst Tom Loy with a massive crystal ball prediction for SMU quarterback commit Keelon Russell to head to Alabama. They all think he is going to flip to the Crimson Tide. He's a Duncanville, Texas prospect. Just had an official visit at Alabama. He told Bama 24/7 that the Crimson Tide were the biggest threat for a possible flip. He talked about his connection with Coach Nick Sheridan being huge. And he said just last week, I feel like Bama just says everything a quarterback wants. So Keelon Russell, keep an eye on him, but currently committed to SMU, but everybody expecting he's going to flip to Alabama. And a quick note over at Georgia. How about Stetson Bennett's little brother, Knox Bennett, has committed to Georgia with their baseball program. He made the announcement Sunday afternoon, choosing to follow in his older brother's footsteps, heading to Athens. Stetson posted a congratulatory message to his younger brother on Instagram. Knox has already played 1 season of college baseball. He'll be transferring in from Chipola College, where he hit .350 with 3 home runs and 21 runs batted in as a freshman. But don't know if Knox has any football skills like his brother Stetson did, but really cool story there. And another Bennett brother. I mean, you think he won't be big man on campus over on the baseball team? You're Stetson Bennett's brother? Come party with us. All right. Thank you for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Still more to come here on Locked On SEC. We will dissect the winners and losers from the SEC baseball weekend in the regional round. That is coming your way here in just a second. But first, this episode presented to you by our friends over at FanDuel. It is winner take all time in the NBA and the NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Again, that is $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and much more. All you got to do is go visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. Again, FanDuel, they are America's #1 sportsbook. Go check them out, FanDuel.com/lockedon. Of course, they got plenty of action you can get in on already for the upcoming season. If you're looking to bet on some of the games heading into next year, a lot of betting lines already up there for you guys to get in on. Again, go check it out at FanDuel. Plenty of stuff. Week 1 lines, like we mentioned last week, Georgia minus 13.5 against Clemson, Vandy plus 13.5 against Virginia Tech. You like LSU minus 6.5 against USC, A&M minus the 1.5 against Notre Dame. All that is up there for you right now at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Go sign up today and get started, and download that FanDuel app. You will not regret it. Get in on the action. All right, continue on here, Locked On SEC, and we got plenty of baseball action to discuss and recap from the weekend that was in baseball, and we will start first with the teams whose seasons came crashing to an end. We start with the Arkansas Razorbacks as their season came to an end, losing to Southeast Missouri State in their own regional, and now that is 2 straight years of early exits for Arkansas in the regional round. And look, we like Dave Van Horn a lot, man, but that is that's disappointing, to say the least, on Arkansas season coming to an end that quickly. Of course, this comes after they made it to Omaha in 2018, 2019, 2022. Like I said, Dave Van Horn has been phenomenal at Fayetteville, but no doubt those fans have to be disappointed with how these last 2 seasons have ended there. No bueno. Got to pick it up. Got to be a little bit better. Vanderbilt, they were eliminated from the Clemson regional after blowing a 5-run lead to High Point. Never heard of High Point prior to that, but it goes down as the first ever regional win for High Point in a regional after previously dominating the regional round for the better part of a decade. Vanderbilt, they will miss the Supers for a 3rd straight season since they were runner-up in the 2021 College World Series against, I think that was Mississippi State. But the Commodores had previously made appearances at 9 super regionals from 2010 to 2021. So Vandy fans looking at Tim Corbin going, man, we love you, but what's going on here? And kind of the same thing with Dave Van Horn. Good coaches, legendary coaches, but hey, man, these early exits. Alabama, they were eliminated from the Tallahassee regional after losing to UCF and then losing to Stetson 4-0. It was Rob Vaughn's first season in Tuscaloosa, but does make the postseason. But the hope there for Tide fans, they want to see him take a little bit of a step forward next year. South Carolina, they were eliminated by James Madison on Sunday afternoon in the Raleigh regional. In 6 seasons under head coach Mark Kingston, the Gamecocks have advanced twice out of the regional round in the NCAAs. So wonder if a little heat starts to get turned up on Coach Kingston there. Over at Mississippi State, their season came to an end on Sunday, falling to Virginia 9-2. The Bulldogs did a good job earlier in the day, staving off elimination, beating St. John's 13-5, but the bats just went cold against Virginia. It was an improvement for Coach Chris Lemonis. Remember, he won the College World Series in 2021, but the Bulldogs missed the postseason entirely in 22 and 23. So they were much better this year. They got to 40 wins, made a regional, but many believe they should have hosted a regional, but they had to go on the road and they fall there. Who's moving on? Well, Tennessee, they're moving on to their super regionals after beating Southern Miss. The Vols' offensive firepower was on full display over the weekend, beating Northern Kentucky 9-3, beating Indiana 12-6, and then Southern Miss 12-3. Tennessee will host the winner of the Greenville Regional, where ECU will take on Evansville in a winner-take-all game later today. Kentucky, they're moving on after taking down Indiana State last night, 5-0. Wildcats will host a Super Regional this weekend. For the first time ever, the Wildcats have only advanced to a Super Regional twice in program history. Once in 2017, losing to Louisville, and the other one last season where they lost to the eventual national champs in LSU in Baton Rouge. So Kentucky will host the winner of the Oregon State UC Irvine Regional, which I believe went into a weather delay, and they will resume today. So we'll see what happens in that one. But congrats to Coach Nick Mingione. That is quite an accomplishment there for Kentucky and where that program had been and where it is now. They are on the rise coming up. Over at Texas A&M, they are moving on after beating Louisiana in their regional last night. That came after beating the Longhorns of Texas Saturday night in College Station. That one had to feel good. But the Aggies will host a Super Regional this weekend versus the winner of the Santa Barbara Regional. Last I saw, it looked like Oregon was leading UC Santa Barbara as of this recording. But congrats to the Aggies. They're moving on and hosting. And then Georgia moving on to the Super Regional round after beating Georgia Tech in extra innings last night, 8-6. The Bulldogs advanced to their first Super Regional since 2008. Wes Johnson in his first season as head coach. Very impressive season for the Bulldogs. They will host a Super Regional this weekend in Athens, hosting NC State. And then a couple to be determined. LSU won twice on Sunday in the North Carolina Regional, beating Wofford and then beating the Tar Heels to force a winner-take-all game today at 5 p.m. Central. The reigning national champs will need to go Johnny Holstaff on the pitching side, but LSU has the offense to get it done if LSU can beat North Carolina one more time and get out of that regional. With Arizona getting eliminated, LSU could host a Super Regional this weekend in Baton Rouge against the winner of West Virginia Grand Canyon. Again, as of this recording, didn't have a winner in that one just yet. And then Florida, how about the Gators beating Oklahoma State in the Stillwater Regional? Huge 3-run home run for Colby Shelton in the 6th inning last night. Florida avoided elimination earlier in the day, beating Nebraska 17-10, and now they will play a winner-take-all game against Oklahoma State later today. By the way, shout out to Jack Caglione on Saturday, had a 9th inning blast, put him at 30 home runs on the season. So with 33 home runs a season ago, Caglione becomes the second Division I player in NCAA history to post multiple 30 home run games, joining BYU's Mike Willis as the only Division I players to achieve that feat. And Caglione is the first SEC player with multiple seasons of 30 or more home runs. Pretty cool there. Softball news, Florida, they defeated Alabama in an elimination game 6-4 on Sunday night in Oklahoma City. Game was close for most of the night, but Florida was able to separate with a 3-run homer by SEC Player of the Year Jocelyn Erickson in the 6th inning. So Florida, they're rewarded with a matchup against Oklahoma in the semis of the Women's College World Series. Today, the Gators would have to defeat Oklahoma twice in order to reach the championship series. Oklahoma's won the last 3 national champions, and they're the heavy betting favorites. They're coming to the SEC next year, so that'll be fun. Hey, and also future SEC foe Texas. They're on the other side. They're going to take on Stanford on the other side of that bracket. We could get a Texas versus Oklahoma Women's College World Series, 2 teams playing their final year in the Big 12, getting ready to both come to the SEC. Hey, rest of the SEC softball field, yeah, good luck. Those 2 programs coming to the conference next year, it's going to make it a murderer's row. All right, thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. Come on back and check us out throughout this week. We'll be talking more football conversation as well. And hey, for your second listen, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. You can find it on the Amazon Fire TV, free Fire TV channels app, or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Sports today. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been Locked On SEC. Hope you guys have a great day, and best of luck to those teams in the regionals, LSU and Florida, and we'll see if they can advance to the Super Regionals. But I'll talk to you guys later this week right here on Locked On SEC.